I want to say, before we begin, Happy Mother's Day. We can never say it enough. And I've told Larry, this is the only sermon every year that I have in trepidation and I dread. You know, it's like spank me and send me home, send me to bed without my dinner. But because I have so many things I want to say, and I don't feel like I really know how to say them. I could spend a lot of hours talking about the past, about the good old days. But I'm really not sure that it would meet any great need unless there was some really specific lesson to be learned out of that. Some things about being a mom never change. They haven't changed since God created Eve, and you look through all of history, you look through the women of the Bible, and you will see that those same women were the same even though they may have been a century later in time. I want to look at some annoying things that moms say. You know, if you look back, they really seemed annoying at the time. I mean, if I look at it now and I'm like, I'm thankful for everything that she said and she could have said and probably did in her mind a lot more. But these are some things I want to just share with you. Have you brushed your hair? You know, you're on the way out the door. You've got 1 foot out the door. And it's quite obvious that you brushed your hair. Your mom knows you brushed your hair. But you didn't do a good enough job, so she's going to send you back. That's the idea. Go back and do it. It's lousy. Do it all over again. By the way, when we say these, we say, I'll never say some of these things. When I was in Fredericksburg a few months ago with my son and grandchildren, the oldest one, who's 13 now, has just become into this great knowledge of the world. And so he said in one of the conversations to my son, well, you're just like my dad. And Levi, without missing a breath, and said, you're just like your dad. And that ended the discussion. So sometimes we will say these things anyway. The second one is, have you brushed your hair? Can you go outside with wet hair? You'll catch your cold. You'll catch your death of cold. It's almost as if you were going to go outside and say to the cold, I dare you to give me a runny nose. Is that what you're wearing? You know, you got both feet out the door this time, and everybody's waiting on you. Now everybody's looking at you. You're saying, is that what you're wearing? Well, I contemplated this all evening and this morning, and this is what I'm going to wear. But guess what it means? Go back and change. That's not really what you're going to wear. Put it back. When you're about 2 or 3 years old, you can have a major meltdown right in front of everybody, and you really don't care, because the most horrible thing in the world is put it back. Or when you get a little older, put it back because we can't afford it, or put it back because you don't need it. In any case, the dreaded words, you look at them and you already know what they are, but then they come out. Do you think money grows on trees? You know, you're old enough as a teenager that you know either they've told you the money tree died or money doesn't grow on trees, and you know that. And now they humiliate you by saying, don't you know money grows on trees? And a simple no would have sufficed. Well, for some people. It wouldn't have worked for me. It would have worked for my sister, but it didn't work for me. But most people would have been happy just to say no. And then I'll treat you like an adult when you start acting like one. You know, you got all of your life savings and you want to spend it on something that, well, for you it's a matter of life and death. If I don't get this, I'm not going to be able to continue. When you start acting like an adult, I'll treat you like one. You'll always be my baby, something like that. It usually happened in a public way. You'd be after church and your mom would take her hand and she'd spit on it and she'd rub your hair. She'd spit on it and she'd rub on your face like she was trying to rub a 3-inch wart off of there in 3 seconds. and you're embarrassed. But you know, when that same mama fixes you some loving, dessert or snack, makes you feel all comfy and cozy, you're all in on that, right? We need to remember that our moms really do have our back. All right, let's go on. Here's a list of things we swore we'd never say or do, but we sometimes. This is mom's illogic, okay? She thought it was logical, but it's really illogical. Don't look at me with those eyes. Like, do I have a choice? I mean, you gave them to me at birth. What other eyes am I going to look with? And of course, you know exactly what she means because you're rolling your eyes. Maybe, well, if you keep making a face like that, it'll freeze that way. Even when you were a little kid, you didn't buy into that, and you really hated it because you knew it wasn't going to freeze that way, but you knew to get it off your face. Quiet down. I can't hear myself think. I remember when I was an older than a teenager, and my mother said that, and I thought, with all the noise going on, you couldn't have heard it anyway. Mine was not much added to it. One day you'll thank me. That's true, isn't it? You get older. At the moment, you're like, thank you? Are you kidding? That'll be the last. I'll die before I do that. And yet one day you do. Because I said so. That's why. That's not bad advice. Rusty shared with me, and Rusty can correct me, but I think up until about 7 or 8 years of age, kids don't have the ability to weigh things. And so, you tell them something, and you're trying to weigh something with a 5 or 6 year old, and they don't get it. You just finally say, just do it because I told you to. And then later, when they get older, you can try to do something else. Here's some of mom's pure logic. As long as you're under my roof, you live by my rules. I never once looked at the roof when she said that. I never even thought about that, but I understood the consequences. That if I'd have said something, she would have gone in and helped me pack my bag. God gave you a brain, use it. Wasn't used a lot at our house, nor this one. Ask a stupid question, you get a stupid answer. But sometimes the stupid question only deserved that kind of a response. Talking to you is like talking to a brick wall. Let's play the quiet game. My mother was a busy lady. I look back and I don't understand how she did what she did. We had 60,000 chickens, had pigs and cows, and when I got old enough, I was old enough to do those things, but nevertheless, Sunday morning she was up. You always knew when she was up. She was rattling the pans. My dad and I used to say, we're going to buy her a set of pans with rubber, some kind of shock-absorbing sound, because she'd be clanging around the pans, and a little bit, though, we were glad because she had a roast on the stove. All the chores had been done. My dad's clothes had been laid out. I mean, everything was ready. All we had to do was get up and come to the table. And she did it week after week. Someone better be bleeding when I get into that room. The weeping and gnashing of teeth was so severe that was a statement that was made once in a while. You better be bleeding. Where's your manners? Were you raised with the wolves? Yeah, probably. Then some of mom's threats, or maybe not just threats, but maybe wishes. She would say, I'm not asking, I'm telling you. That was pretty definitive. There wasn't a lot of wiggle room in that one. When you have kids, I hope they're just like you. Seems to go around that way, doesn't it? You hope if they only have one, I hope it's still just like you. Don't use that tone with me. That's when you knew you'd kind of overstepped the line. It's time to back off. Stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. They just wailed you. In my case, within an inch of my life, they had to do it. My sister, you could look at her and she would cry. With me, you'd look at me and you just had to wail on with a belt. And then finally I come loose and they go, shut up or I'll give you something to cry about. I thought that was enough at the moment to cry about. You better wipe that look off your face. As though you could be a windshield wiper, just it's gone. Don't make me tell you again. Come back there. Turn this car around. You know, there's ad nauseum of all of these things that they could say, but don't make me do this. And when they turned the car, or slowed the car down, you were like, we straightened up really quick. These phrases, obviously, were not intended to bring around any kind of great, meaningful communication with your offspring. Now, you could have taken any one of those points as a mom and explained it ad nauseum to them, but that wasn't the point. At least every mom assumed when she was one of them that I would like for you to be reasonable with me and treat me like an adult and all that. That's what we thought. She thought when she was one of them, but later on she realized those phrases were just a quick moment, a way to maintain sanity. I think the most powerful, important job in the whole wide world is being a mother. There's not anything that even comes close. You can sit down and you can think about dads, and they're definitely important. God put them there. You can think about all the people in the world that have jobs, nuclear reactors, electric plants, you name whatever they are. You can be the President of the United States. It doesn't come close to being that of a mom. My mother was the most beautiful woman I ever saw. All I am, I owe to my mother. I attribute my success in life to the moral, intellectual, and physical education I received from her. I thought that was interesting, the order in which you put that. The moral, intellectual, and physical education. All that I am or I hope to be, I owe to my angel mother. From my mother, I learned the value of prayer, how to have dreams and believe I could make them come true. I probably read 50 or 60 in every one of them, because if history is true, and I believe in this area it is, then the greatest, most powerful job assumed by men, powerful men who were men of renown, they attributed it to their mother. As moms, you face a ton of challenges in the year 2025. We don't have that setting, but I would like to sometime just be able to sit down and just start around the room. Let grandmothers and moms, those that will soon be moms one day in maybe 5 or 10 years, I'd like for them to just sit down and talk about these are things that we face. These are things that concern us. There's a lot of them. Teacher gave her class of second graders a lesson on a magnet. What the magnet would do, how it would function. And then the very next day, she gave a test, and it said, my full name has 6 letters. The first one is M. I pick up things. What am I? And over half of the class chose mother. Being a mother in 2025, very difficult. Sometimes you're asked to juggle your career. Not sure God ever intended that to be the case, but you're intended to juggle your career to help the family, to make ends meet as you've chosen to live. I want you to think about one thing for the rest of the lesson. As moms, you have the ability to have an amazing legacy that you leave behind. Few things can change in motherhood over a generation. They do slowly after time, but preparing your children to live a godly life never changes. To be a godly mother, to be a good mother who you want to pass on. By the way, I need to stop here. Because there are people who say, Jerry, I didn't start out right. I didn't start out good. I didn't start out till later in life. Okay, don't despair. I'm trying to talk about people who yet have something to do. And by the way, if you're a grandparent or something, or you feel like you failed, sometimes the best lesson you can give is to explain to them why you don't think you did well. So I'm not here to beat up on you today or to make you feel bad today. I want you to understand that there's a timeless principle, and that is being involved in the Word of God, and nothing will ever substitute or replace that. We're going to go backwards in the 5 verses that were read a moment ago from Timothy. We're going to start like this. There was a mother of 3 notoriously youngsters who were asked whether or not she'd have children again, and she said, sure, but just not the same ones. You can directly bless your family. Look at this. I've been reminded of your sincere faith, which lived in your grandmother Lois and in your mother Eunice. Timothy gets a faith passed down that's 3 generations old. I hope you realize this effect you're having is lasting. It's going to go long after you're gone. Not just a huge responsibility, but I want you to see it as an opportunity to impact your children long after you've gone from this world. Your strong faith in the Lord will directly affect your family. If I had to choose from all the text on faith, I think it would be this verse. Without faith, it's impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. I don't know where you are in your life, and I will say this, it doesn't matter where you've been, it matters where you're going. But I want you to understand, if you want to come to God, it's not rocket science, it's not huge. Number one, you've got to believe that he exists. And number 2, that he rewards those who seek him diligently or earnestly, depending on the translation you have. That's amazing. Without faith, you can't please God, but faith in who God is and that he rewards is what he wants. He said the sincere faith which first lived in your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice. The faith Timothy has now, he possesses. It's a legacy. It's not something that is automatic. This isn't something that automatically is passed down. At some point in time, Timothy just woke up and he had this faith. And the last words I like the word sincere faith. It's easier to see a genuine lesson than to hear the words about faith. It's easier to see someone who's modeling faith than it is to hear about faith, isn't it? The word sincere comes from a Latin word. It's interesting how they chose the Latin over the Greek word, but a Latin word that means without wax. When in the first century time, people were making porcelain, something that was very fine, very expensive, very delicate. Sometimes as they put it in the kiln, maybe they left it too long, maybe it's exposed to the cold too soon, but fine cracks or hairlines would be seen in that porcelain. And so if you were unscrupulous, you would take some white pearly kind of sloppy wax and you would coat it all and cover all of that. The Greek word, interestingly enough, translated means sun tested. You could take that vase and you could hold it up to the sun and it would still reveal those imperfections. And so when the Greek translated this fine, I'd already said that. The tiny cracks already said that. Merchants marked their good products with the word sin sera, without wax. So when he's talking about, Timothy, you have a sincere faith. It's not a fake faith. It's not fraud. And by the way, that doesn't mean that your faith isn't challenged. Right? I read something yesterday. It says, faith doesn't make it easy. Faith makes it possible. That's true. No sham, no hypocrisy, no trying to cover it up. You know, sometimes things happen. It's not necessarily a reflection on our face. I'll tell you a story, true story from me happened yesterday. I did something that I thought I would never, ever do. I had a Bible study scheduled yesterday, and I had to be called by the person who was going to study with me to remind me how to study. And I wanted to crawl in a hole. I suppose a matter of pride was being there some, but just the idea that I could allow the things of the world to take priority or something like that really had an impact on my life. So my faith, I want it to be real. I realize that sometimes there will be a cracked show, but my real life, I want it to be a sincere faith. Pass down to your children will produce fruit beyond your years. Look at this. Then I heard a voice from heaven say, "Write, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on." Here's what I'm looking for. Yes, says the Spirit, they will rest from their labor, for their deeds will follow them. Do you know people that are long gone and their deeds are still following them? I know people that have been dead almost a century, and the effect that they had. And so moms, this is really significant. Long after you're gone, you want the deeds of your life, you want the things that you filled your children with, you want those to continue on. And you have a great opportunity to do that. You know, I can't tell you anything about Timothy's father. I really don't know anything with absolute certainty. But I'm told about his mother and his grandmother. You take these two women committed to Jesus, committed to the fact that as disciples of Christ, it is their job to make disciples in the world through him. It's not surprising that it started with the grandmother and then the mother and now Timothy. I wonder if they ever thought how great what they did with Timothy would be passed on. And today, I realize through the Holy Spirit, but today we're still thinking about that man. Maybe you didn't get off to a good start. Maybe you don't like the way things have gone. Maybe you think, I wasted all my life, Jerry. Why bother? God doesn't want anything to do with me. There could be nothing further from the truth. God didn't come to save good people, or almost good people. He came to seek and save the lost. You're either saved or lost. There's not an almost category. It's like, I'm so bad, God doesn't want anything to do with me. Not true. For God so loved the world, all of us. So don't despair. Please don't despair. Wherever you are in your life, if you feel frustrated, that's okay. Talk to some of us. I'll do my best to encourage you. Just be honest and say, God, I need to change my life. I want to change a direction. I don't like where I've been going. I really want to change because I want to have an impact on my kids and my grandkids. Do you want your legacy to be a couple of things? And I'll end with this because I just thought would you rather they participated in all the sports activities and were involved in all of that, or would you rather them have a sincere faith in Jesus? I know people, and they think they're giving it to their very best to their kids, but they spend all the time in sports. I had one of them tell me, a father just a few weeks ago said, I realized I've got to stop it because he said, they're getting all the sports, but they're not getting Jesus. I don't know where you are today in your life, but I want you to know if you're a mother, a grandmother, a great-grandmother, we want to honor you, not just today, But we want to honor you very often as we remember you and the impact that you've had on the lives of those around you. Maybe it didn't turn out well, maybe it hasn't yet, but the seed planted will someday produce. I don't know where you are in your walk with Jesus, what we can do, but if there's something we can do to encourage you, let us know while we stand and sing.